All right. Once your Ansible playbooks have done their execution and once everything is configured, let's look at the architecture and what actually happened, right? So we have Travels Company, which is kind of a travels agency, right? With a bunch of microservices running in their environment, and different business units own these different microservices. So one is their online channel business unit, and the other is their travel agency business unit. The online channel business unit is a collection of web portals from which their customers can book flights, hotels, cars, insurances that are deployed in different countries. And the travels agency is basically the microservices which provides APIs that provide details about the availability of flights, hotels, cars, insurances. So the online channel business unit makes API calls to all the services in the travel agency business unit to get the details and show it to their customers. So that is the setup. And because we have a lot of microservices, um, you know, managing them, observing the interactions between them, and kind of seeing the interactions between them kind of becomes very tough, right? And that is where we'll be leveraging service mesh. We'll manage all these microservices as a part of service mesh, and that is going to be our scenario one on seeing how service mesh will improve the observability and also provide more visualization into the microservices. Right, now let's jump into our first scenario. So our Ansible script has already deployed the Travels application, configured service mesh to manage all the microservices that we spoke a couple of minutes ago. And in the below steps, as a part of scenario one, we shall learn how service mesh increases the observability and tracing across these services. So let's go ahead and log into our OpenShift console where service mesh is installed. You can see all the components of service mesh, but our things of interest here are Kiali and Jaeger. So let's go ahead and click on the Kiali route and let's navigate to graph. So with the graph, you have to select the namespaces first, and you can see how the different microservices, the direction of calls here. And if you want to see actually real-time distribution, we actually have a simulator which generates the calls. So let's go ahead and check the request distribution. You can actually see how the requests are distributed among different services with the percentages. You can also see the flow of traffic with traffic animation option, and this is how actually Istio increases the observability into the services. It also provides a lot of other details, right? If you go into the workloads, click on a specific workload, you can check the traffic, the logs, the inbound metrics, the request volume, request distribution, and whatnot. So this way Istio provides a very in-depth insight into your microservices and the interactions. And if you want to trace the microservices, trace the different calls, you have to go back to and click on distributed tracing, which will take you to the Jaeger UI. And that is very interesting because it shows you, the time taken between different calls and how the different services interact, and which is kind of the bottleneck you can figure out, right? So let us go ahead and select, for example, say the hotels travel agency, and let's find the traces. So it shows all the different traces. Let's go ahead and click on some trace here. You can actually see the amount of time taken between the different calls, how the call is traversing amongst the different services, and this is the level of visibility that Jaeger provides. So you can actually see all of these things in the Jaeger UI, and you can select the different the you can select the different services here, you can select the different operations here and whatnot, and get different types of tracing details using the Jaeger UI. And again, remember, all this is possible because service mesh, OpenShift service mesh provides this out of the box, and because all these microservices that we're able to trace and observe are managed by the service mesh.